former WTA player claims something is not right with Coco Gauff after seeing her in training recently. Taking down Kamila Rakimova, Leylah Fernandez, Belinda Bencic, and Eva Liss, Gauff advanced to the semi-finals of the China Open, where she met Amanda Anisimova. In under an hour, Gauff lost to Anisimova, 1-6, 2-6, as she was well beaten by her fellow American. The world number 3 looked out of sorts against Anisimova, leaving many to question what steps Gauff should take next. Weighing in with her thoughts, a former WTA star shared what she noticed about Gauff when watching her train recently. Nicole Pratt thinks something is eating away at Coco Gauff's confidence. Appearing as a guest on the latest episode of the tennis podcast, former top 40 player Nicole Pratt commented on Gauff's struggles. Coco Gauff is an interesting one. I saw her in Beijing. She actually hit with Storm Hunter there in a session. She said, "It is there, but it's not there. There is something underlying, eating away at her confidence. We have spoken about the serve a lot, but even beyond that, there is just something not quite right." As Pratt mentioned, Gauff's serve has been a big topic of discussion over recent months. Struggling with the shot in Canada and Cincinnati, Gauff hired specialist Gavin McMillan as her new coach on the eve of the US Open. The numbers have improved since, although on her worst days, the problems resurface. Pratt doesn't think the serve is Gauff's only problem, although she has faith in the 21-year-old working it out before the 2026 season begins. She is still young, and she can figure it out. A part of the year I love that we don't talk about to a certain degree is the preseason, where these players have some time off and recalibrate and review the year, she said. I always love to see where they come back in January. What has changed, and what have they added, or who have they got in their team? Because that has an influence on what they are going to be doing day in day out. Gauff will want to have things sorted in time for the new year, as she searches for a third Grand Slam title. Can Coco Gauff win the 2026 Australian Open? The American star is a 2-time major champion, adding a second to her collection earlier this year. Gauff is, however, yet to win the Australian Open, but how well has she performed in Melbourne so far in her career? She came closest to Australian Open glory in 2024, losing out to eventual champion Aryna Sabalenka in the semi-finals. Unfortunately for Gauff, she failed in her bid to return to the semi-finals this year, falling short against Spain's Paula Badosa in the last 8. As one of the best players in the women's game, Gauff will no doubt have title ambitions when she makes her 7th career appearance at the Australian Open in January. She will, however, face some stiff opposition from the likes of Sabalenka, Iga Swiatek, and defending champion Madison Keys. Sabalenka has reached the final 3 years running and is a 2-time champion at the event, while Keys won her maiden Grand Slam in Melbourne this year. And despite never reaching the Australian Open final, Swiatek was just a point away from doing so in 2025, and will return with a point to prove in 2026. Only time will tell who will emerge victorious in Melbourne next year, but you certainly won't want to miss any of the action when the 2026 Australian Open begins on Monday, January 12th. They say the most telling stories in sport are whispered in practice, not shouted in press conferences. It was on a quiet morning, nets strung tight, early light flickering across the court, when a former WTA player, watching from the edge of the fence, leaned back and murmured, "Something is not right with Coco." What could she have meant? In the world of professional tennis, that phrase is heavy. It suggests a crack in the armor, not necessarily public, but real, perceptible to someone who's seen it all before. 1. The glimpse behind the glare. At first glance, Gauff still moves like a dynamo. Her footwork is sharp, her angles crisp, her aura electric. But in training, the nuance reveals itself, a hesitation on approach, a flicker of indecision in the split step, a serve that tries too hard and misses its mark. The former pros saw what perhaps the crowd could not, small stutters, micro-hesitations, those minutes when concentration lapses for a fraction. This is not about form in full breakdown. It's about tiny perturbations, the difference between brilliance and brittleness. Because at the highest level, it's these slivers that separate dominance from struggle. 2. The many faces of not right. What could not right encapsulate? Here are a few shadows one might sense: physical fatigue, or hidden injury. A body trying to mask pain, adjusting subtly in stroke delivery, compensating in the legs. Technical drift. When a stroke begins to betray itself, grip, swing path, paddle height, drifting from what had been solid ground. Mental unrest. Doubts lurking in the mind, hesitancy, overthinking shot selection, fear of error. Pressure and expectation. When the external weight of pressure, must win, or must defend, presses on muscle and nerve. To catch these things, the observer must be intimately fluent in the language of motion and hesitation. The former WTA player, having lived such lines, sensed not only what is, but what might unravel. 3. A parallel, the in-between moments. We often see only the set points, the winners, the headlines. But it's in the in-between, between points, between serves, between matches, that true trajectories shift. A flicker of doubt before the return. A deep breath tossed away prematurely. A slight overreach in a ground stroke that begs correction. These in-betweens echo long after the match ends. When the whisper, "something is not right," is spoken, it is precisely referencing those gaps, those spaces where brilliance leaks away if not tended to. For Gauff's journey, high peaks, deep valleys. Coco Gauff is no stranger to extremes. She has soared, Grand Slam finals, major wins, flashes of brilliance, and also has been tested by form slumps, serving inconsistencies, and external scrutiny. Her evolution has always balanced on the tightrope between youthful swing and mature control. Now, with more weight on her shoulders, more eyes on her performance, the margin for structural drift is narrower. What once passed unnoticed now becomes magnified. And when someone with experience peeks in, they might see the fissures we all miss. 5. The power of the whisper. Why is such a remark significant? Because it's grounded in respect. A former pro would not casually tear at a peer. This is observational pain, not cheap critique. It signals urgency. That whisper is an alarm bell, not a verdict. It asks, notice, adjust, act. It humanizes greatness. Even the elite are vulnerable. That whisper reminds us, no dynasty is ironclad. Gauff doesn't need to act out the whisper publicly. But she can listen internally. She can pause. She can redirect. She can restore. 6. What it could lead to. From that whisper might come a quieter training period, with attention on the subtle arcs, the micro-corrections. Adjustment in schedule or rest, giving the body room to recalibrate.